replace that.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I have two more, Mr. Mayor.
Help yourself.
Page 97 for me, 95 for Bart, 5.8 for you. Under vacancy increased hazard, it states that others state that if a building is vacant or unoccupied for more than 6 consecutive days, the carrier will not pay for any loss or those due to vandalism, sprinkler leakage, glass breakage, water damage, theft, or attempted. How does that apply to
you say-
jail?
Your page
You
46.
can't access it anyway, so if it's been more than 60 days, I mean, I think Jackie was the last person in there.
We have that determined already. What it's typically for is if you buy a new piece of property and it remains vacant, all I have to do is let them know it's vacant, and that's the exposure.
Okay.
Yeah, so you guys are fine with that.
All right, last one, page, I promise, page 109 for me, 107 for Bart, and 8.3 for you, Mike. Under estimated payroll, under code number 7580, it lists sewage disposal plant operations is 125,000. Even though we don't have that on our payroll, since they're like YBSD is their own entity, it's their own cooking pot, does that 125,000 impact our big fire, right? Since it isn't ours?
This is probably an insurance company classification more so than it is an accurate representation of what we would call our sewer department employees.
Your what department, Bart?
Sewer department employees. So we're not paying for workers' compensation
Yeah.
coverage for YBSD employees.
What we don't want to do, we like it classified like that because what it does is it reduces your rate. Most likely that would fall into like waterworks, which is, $4.43 of a rate, or even street maintenance. They sometimes lump them into that, which is $9.33. So by using this sewage disposal class code, you're paying $3.71, so it would actually be saving you money to keep it like that. It's all within that insurance definition.
As long as you know what you're doing, man. That's why I'm throwing this in.
I just started last week.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call, please.
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Olesen,
Aye.
Longcastle,
Aye.
Wilczewski,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Vote.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Thank you. All right, next is Public Works Committee report, and I will turn it over to Alderman Funkhauser.
All right, Public Works 2015-62. This is well number 8 rehabilitation. Make a motion to accept the bid and award contract to Lane Christensen Company in the amount not to exceed $86,929.
Second,
Second.
comments or questions?
You want to take it, or did I take it?
No, you go. I'll talk tonight.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, we were just curious. It seems like the item we are going to put in is kind of proprietary, and so there's only one person that can deal with this, so they almost have like a monopoly on it, right? So, I mean, we're kind of stuck, because the other bidders have to they have to go to this Lane, right? Lane Company to use their equipment.
For one of the line items within the mandatory alternate bids, yes. For the base bids and the majority of the mandatory alternate bid items, no.
Okay, so it was just for one item.
There were 3 or 4, I think, out of the group.
It was like a
probably
pump?
a couple dozen. Yeah, it was a brand of pump.
Does it make sense to use a different brand that's not proprietary?
Yes.
So we can have more of a
Yeah.
competitive bidding process?
Yeah, so even within that line item, like if you look at the bid specs, there are,
What page you on?
it's PDF page 148 for me, I don't know what it is for Joel.
152.
152. Yes, it's a large spreadsheet with all the bid items.
Right.
So if you look at like 10A, 10B, 10C, and 10D, those are all substitute options for each other for a specific, job or component of a project. So those are 400 horsepower motors, it looks like, and looks like there's 2 different brands, Byron Jackson, and then there's one for Sunstar is the brand of the motor. So you would do one of those four, never 2 or 3 or even 4. You would pick one of them. So it's like 10A and 10B. One of them is Byron Jackson, one of them is Sunstar. So they're direct alternates to each other. So so it probably wasn't the best justification to lead off with the fact that they didn't have the mandatory alternate bids because of the monopoly issue with that specific brand. But there were provisions built into the bid specs that gave you substitutes so that they could have done, instead of a Byron Jackson motor, they use a Sunstar motor. So that's what it is.
But the bid that we're accepting is still using the proprietary motor.
The bid that we're accepting
Has a quote.
is 1 through 19. And then there's a possibility that 4A, 7A, 7B, 7D, et cetera, any one of those would be chosen. Once we get in there, open up the motors and the equipment, figure out what's wrong with it, we might.
And that would be up to Eric, what we put in.
It'd be a combination between Eric and Brad,
Okay,
based
but I
on,
mean, our side,
yes.
is what I mean. Okay.
And we're hoping not to do any of the 4A through 15A.
Yes.
We're hoping we don't need those.
Yeah, especially 10C.
Yeah, absolutely. That's put in there as a backup,
Okay.
so we have a price so they can't go, well, we have you behind the 8 ball now.
Okay. Well, as long as the decision's in our hands,
Yeah, so the justification probably should have been ordered as, first, the company that we're selecting had put in the wells, obviously. So we think that there's some efficiency and then ease of use to do the rehab. But then also, based on what Brad and Eric have seen in other towns when they've done other bids, the most likely scenarios of what's going to occur once they open up the equipment, and then what we'd have to choose. And their analysis of the prices that were provided between those, we would think that Lane would be cheapest out of those. So, and then additionally, the low base bidder did have some issues with their unit prices further down on the base bid that, we looking at it, it's probably an error, but it didn't follow the direct requirements of the bid.
thank you.
How many of the wells do we have that have the proprietary pump in there? All of them? I believe that's what we asked to be, right?
All.
Now, was that initiated because it's just the best there is, or is it because this particular service provider just happens to be more favorable as far as consistently coming in as the low bidder as far as the state goes?
They were bid, though, and I believe, I don't recall if Grand Reserve was, but that was done privately as part of their annexation agreement. I do not remember, but they also used, at that time, it was Lane Western.
But is that something that's gonna end up screwing us later because we have a pump that we can only go through one particular provider to get one part of a service agreement?
No, it's sort of like
Makes more
using,
sense to
it's
kind
sort of
of-
like using OEM parts though, too.
Okay. All right.
That's why we bid out to the other brands, just in case if there does run into an issue with that specific brand of motor, we have an alternative.
Okay. But it's not like you can use parts from one and use them in the other, you're kind
No.
of stuck using only that.
Yes.
And if we stick with that one pump, which was then installed initially, you have to go with, Lane's gonna make money regardless, doesn't matter.
Yes.
And then what if Lane goes out of business? Is there another company like Lane?
There'll be another vendor that would step in and take over that northern Illinois territory for Byron Jackson.
Okay.
Or we would install a different brand of parts.
Yeah.
Over time.
Or, not all at once.
No.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Raiders,
All right.
Ruler,
Aye.
Lopsima,
Aye.
Funkasser,
Aye.
Liszewski,
Aye.
Teeling,
Aye.
Vogt,
Aye.
Pat.
Aye.
Economic Development Committee report, I will turn over to Alderman Coe.
I'd like to have a motion to approve an ordinance extending the new residential construction incentive program, parentheses, bill, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
I'll move. Before we discuss it, I know there's a number of builders who would like to say something, so if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak in the build program, now is your opportunity. Please step up and state your name for the record and sign in, please.
Good afternoon or evening. this point. Aladdin Nassar with Meadowbrook Builders. I stood before you guys a few months ago when when you all were considering ending the program early. And I just kind of want to reiterate the same things I said then, that the program is very helpful. It's a kind of a must. Unfortunately, I don't know what you guys have seen or what the city has seen permit-wise, but this summer had a pretty severe slowdown in activity all across the Chicagoland the new home builder market. And I don't know what the reason for that was, but it started to pick back up. We wrote a couple contracts over the last few weeks, but by no means is it roaring, back the way it was in 2000 to 2006, say. So anything I think that helps the customers, and this is one thing that really does help the customers quite a bit, swing them from neighboring towns to Yorkville and swing them from resale to new construction. I think it's an absolute winner, as far as the homeowners are concerned. I do think that not extending it would have a negative impact on future sales, and but that's my opinion. We've been having a lot of success with this program down in Minooka as well, and they voted in. They renewed it April to April, so they renewed it this past April through April of 2016. So again, I would just urge you all to vote to extend it for another 12 months, and at that time we can come up with maybe a different idea for. I'm paying right now in Blackberry Woods about $26,000 to $27,000 in permit fees. In Joliet, we're about to acquire some lots in Joliet. The fees are $11,000. In Plainfield, they're about 10 to 11. In Shorewood, they're $12,000. In Minooka, they're $17,000 with the $5,000 that we contribute towards the stimulus. So everywhere that we build or that we're looking to build, the fees are, a third to a half to 60% of what the fees are here in Yorkville. So again, we kind of doubled down at the beginning of the year in February. We bought another 50 lots, partially improved lots in the subdivision. So we like the town, but sales velocity and sales appreciation, as the councilman was saying, the velocity hasn't been what we were hoping for, and the appreciation, which would allow us to raise our prices and start to finally make some profit again, aren't there either. And I just think that canceling this program would be just another stumbling block in the way of continuing, to recover. So you guys could check. I could send to staff the Metro study kind of quarterly, third quarter report showing that year-over-year building activity in the overall Chicagoland market has been flat year-over-year, and they're projecting it to be flat next year too. So I don't know, we'll do about 15 or 18 homes in Yorkville this year, and we were kind of budgeting everything to be at about 2 a month or 24 homes. So things are going okay, but they're not nearly, to the level where, like if you were the Fed, I would say don't raise the interest rates. So if you're the city council, I would say, don't cancel this program, please. So thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks.
Anyone else? There's no fight, gentlemen.
I really don't have much to add because he pretty much covered everything. My name is Bill Robinson. I'm with, we're Cal Atlantic Homes now. We used to be Ryland. We've completed our merger with Standard Pacific, and in the near future we'll be rebranding and stuff, so you'll see Cal Atlantic signs out there for us. Of the 22 homes that we've sold or have contracts sold and have contracts on this year, 18 of those residents have used this, this program. So we're not seeing the growth that we were expecting as the 2 a month. And this program is really helping to bring people into this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Mangione. I'm a resident here in Yorkville, live in Kylands Ridge. I just wanted to say, I think that this program should be extended into next year. I've just read some of the studies on this, looked at the numbers. I think there were some numbers published in the Kendall County Record here recently. And then just did a little look on my own, and I see that a number of the lots that we have open in Yorkville there, some of the real estate taxes that are being collected are zero. I saw this in Whispering Meadows. And to me, this doesn't make a lot of sense to sit on that property and earn zero when we could extend this program and allow builders and, not only builders, but people who want to general contract their own house, an opportunity to get a little bit of their funds back. And then if you think about it, once you actually put a building on that property, there's significant benefits to both the community and to the tax revenue, because that revenue then will be consistently, generally, unless there's some foreclosure issues, but provided that things go better throughout the economy, then you're going to be collecting taxes on that property into potentially eternity. So that's a lot better than sitting on zero for 5-6 years or whatever, when you could just put out some money right now and then see this revenue stream increase, which I think would be beneficial. So with that said, I think this has been a good program, and I think it should be extended as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else on the build program? Hearing none, I'll open it up to the council. Any comments or questions on extending the build program? Alderman Cox?
Yeah, I'm pleased that we're considering this. I thought a couple of months ago this would be a dead program, but statistics seem to speak for themselves how successful this has been. I do have a question though. Staff had recommended an extension of 2 years. Now the committee is pushing 1. Is it with the thought that a year from now we'll try to extend it another year?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Dan?
Well, I've always been in favor of this program. I think it's a great program, but one of the builders brought up a point, talking about other municipalities' fees, their building fees, and I know we've had a lot of discussions about it and talked about land cash and all that, and, maybe that, I can't remember if we have to open up annexation agreements again to do that, or sometimes, I couldn't remember if that's the case, but, some of them have to be starting to expire too.
Yeah, there have been a few big ones.
Because I know some of the aldermen are concerned about this program because it's unfair to residents that already live here. I don't see that, because they are coming in and they're going to be paying the water bills and all that for years to come. But maybe that would be one thing that we can do, is look at our building fees again and see if that's the alternative, because that would alleviate a lot of their issues that the build program already does. We've talked about it a lot of times, and we've never really done anything except for certain areas.
Yeah.
Like we extended a fee lock for, some that came, that were purchased, and the annexation agreement was open again. But is that an option if you're not in favor of the build program that we can talk about, during this year that we have it?
Yes, I would say that in general, our fees are very low compared to surrounding municipalities. So the $27,000 that was referenced, I'm not sure what that was in relationship to, because it doesn't jive with my understanding of what is currently being charged in that subdivision. So I'll verify that.
Yeah, that's the only reason I brought it up, is because that was the number that was thrown out there, and then Plainfield is 10, and, you know, those are
Yeah.
surrounding.
In Windette Ridge, the permit fee is less than $5,000. In other subdivisions, it's less than 10. So in Windette Ridge, there's actually not enough of a permit fee to generate a full build rebate.
Right.
And I'm under the impression that our most expensive permit in the subdivision would be less than $20,000. So I'll go back and
Yeah.
check, like I said.
I mean, because when those numbers were thrown out there, I'm like, well, maybe that's the alternative, but I mean, if they're not, then it's not.
Sure.
Then I just, you know, when the numbers are presented to you that way, you wonder, so that was just.
Alderman Closemo?
Well, as everybody knows, I vote against the build program, every time it comes up, and I don't think my vote's gonna change this time. But, you guys are actually selling me on it, slowly. I mean, I'll give you that. But once again, I go back to the funding mechanism, and Alderman Teeling alluded to it, that I have the issue with. We complain that, you know, our sewer and water funds are being depleted, and we've charged special fees and water bills to bring all that back. In the meantime, we're waiving these fees for new residents. So what we're doing is we're taxing the current residents and saying, hey, you gotta pay a little bit more so we can hang a carrot on a stick to bring in the new resident. And although I want the new resident, just like every other village in town wants a new resident, I don't want to put that on the back of the current resident. I've said it before, if we so believe in this program and we're so convinced that it works, then let's not fund it the way we fund it. Fund it out of our general fund, our holy grail of funds that we don't want to touch because it's so important to us. Well, if you believe so much in that program, you fund it out of the general fund. We don't have to put the burden onto the water and the sewage bill and pass that on to the current homeowner. And then maybe I might actually vote for this thing, because over time, it seems to maybe, I'm not going to admit defeat, but I'm going to say that maybe it might have an effect. And and Diane brings up the idea of lowering the actual permit fees themselves, and I don't think that'll have the same effect. People when you lower their permit fees, when they close, they don't get a $10,000 check handed to them that they can use for blinds and carpet and porches and swimming pools and trips to Disneyland. That's what the incentive is. It's the carrot on the stick that they get at the closing handed to them, a check for $10,000. Who doesn't like a check for $10,000? You did. What? You did. No, I only get $5,000. Because I built a Windette Ridge. So my point is, the funding mechanisms where I'm starting to have the problem with this. If we truly believe in this program, then let's, pay for it out of our general fund, which I know is not a popular thing to do, but I just don't support putting it on the back of the current residents so we can hang the carrot for the new residents. So for that reason, I'll be voting no.
Anyone else?
So we will be outvoted 6-2, as always.
Roll call, please.
Torres,
Nay.
Cosmo,
Nay.
Funkhauser,
Aye.
Liszewski,
Aye.
Teeling,
Aye.
Vogt,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Ritter.
Nay.
It passes 5-3.
I'm making headway.
Okay, next on the admin committee report, and I'll turn that over to Alderman Liszewski.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve a resolution relating to termination of participation by elected officials in the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund for the positions of,
I guess we should have discussed this before we
I
made
guess
the
we
motion.
should have. Well, I'm gonna,
You're up to
should I
plan.
list them? Mayor, Alderman, City Clerk, City Treasurer.
Okay, so that's, you can
Okay,
throw everyone in there.
with an effective date of today, November 10th, 2015, and authorize the city clerk to execute.
Do we have a second? So we have a motion and a second, and that's for every elected office. If this passes, that means that no elected official in Yorkville will again receive health benefits or retirement paid for by the taxpayers. Do you have any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I was just happy to see this in this agenda, because I remember a while back, we asked about it, and we were told that we couldn't get out of the RMRF, even if we wanted to. So I'm glad that we dug, and the staff did the research and contacted who they needed to contact to turn out that we actually could get out of the RMRF, because I agree, part-time aldermen should not have retirement and pensions paid for by the citizens, so I'm glad that we voted to get rid of the health insurance, and I'm glad we're voting to get rid of the retirement, so. I will
second that.
Yay.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Hawkesser,
Aye.
Lischewski,
Aye.
Teeling,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Okay, on to our next.
The next one is complicated also.
Yes.
All right.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve an ordinance clarifying the requirements for tattoo and body piercing establishments, in parentheses, ordinance version number 1, keeping the buffering, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
Second.
All right, comments or questions on this one? There's been a lot of controversy lately regarding this, and there was a recent article in the Beacon News that I thought was a little unfair to the city. It painted the city in a bad light. And I kind of inferred that the city was anti-business or trying to harass a small business. And the fact is, nothing could be further from the truth. I don't think there's anyone on this council who's anti-tattoo or anti-tattoo parlor, especially not anti-business or anti-small business. So I just wanted to set the record straight a little bit, because that did get a lot of attention on social media. And I just wanted to go through the timeline a little bit of everything that led us to where we're at right now. First of all, I want to say that the city staff did not make any mistakes. They did not give the petitioner any incorrect information. Several months ago, the petitioner came to City Hall and inquired with our building department if the property in question was owned for a tattoo parlor. Okay, the answer was yes. And staff asked if they would be doing any interior or exterior remodeling, and petitioner said yes. So staff proceeded to give him information on obtaining a commercial building permit that he would have to obtain one. The city also advised the petitioner at that time to see the city clerk for any licenses that may be required. And at the time, the petitioner stated he was working on a business name and he would be back. Next week, on Friday, October 2nd, Fancy Flush had a ribbon cutting. And that evening, someone who was not the petitioner, claiming to be the owner of the establishment, was arrested on East Van Emmen after a disturbance of rowdies. The subject was arrested for an outstanding warrant and criminal damage to property. City staff did not know that the shop had officially opened until this incident on October 2nd after the ribbon cutting. The police incident was made known to the administration side on Monday, October 5th, the first business day after the incident. That day, a ticket was issued for lack of a tattoo parlor license. And incidentally, the hearing for that ticket was last night, and nobody from the establishment had showed up. Subsequently, an application for a tattoo establishment was received on October 6th. Obviously, the buffer clause in the license application is the current issue, but we're still also working through his actual application. The business name that was on the application is not registered with the state as he submitted it on his application to the city. Insurance documents submitted still do not meet our requirements. So there are more problems here than just this buffer clause. And this article, written by the Beacon, written by somebody named Erica Wurst. I do not know this reporter, but the last name is very fitting because it's one of the worst written articles I've read in a very long time. The article stated that the mayor, fire marshal, police chief, and city inspector had already visited before October 2nd. And that's not the case. The fire marshal and city inspector may have been there, but myself and the police chief did not go to the establishment until October 19th for an inspection. I must say, there's nothing wrong with the facility. The facility was fine. I thought the petitioner was a nice guy. I had no problems with anything that I saw there. And the article also said that we did not realize that a buffer clause was in the licensing until it was too late, and that's not the case either. No one realized the buffer clause impacted this petitioner because he never finished going through the process. Building and zoning department staff do not issue licenses. They don't do licensing. It's not their job. They know the zoning code. They don't do licensing. Had the petitioner went to the clerk, or it took the 2 minutes on our webpage to look up the city code, he would have known about the buffer issue. Okay? Literally, you can go on our webpage in under 30 seconds, go under the city code, type in tattoo, all the regulations are right there. Anyone looking to open a business should do that due diligence. I mean, I compare this to a situation if someone would come into the building department and say, hey, I'm looking to open up a bar in a certain property. Is it zoned for a bar? And they say, sure, it's zoned for a bar. And they proceed to open a bar without obtaining a liquor license. What would the city do? The city would shut them down and say, look, you need to go through the background checks and get your licensing. We would shut them down immediately. And this situation is no different. So I just wanted to give that history because of all the attention that was in social media and give the city's perspective on it. None of that is really a question before you tonight. The question before you tonight is the buffering, okay? Whether or not we want to keep a 700-foot buffer for tattoo parlors. So that is the question, and I will open it up to the city council for any comments or questions that they may have. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm glad that this issue came up at the same night that we had the build program, because I'm going to make the same argument. We have ordinances in place, and I don't believe we changed the ordinances and the protections we have for the current residents because we want to dangle a carrot for new business. We have ordinances, they're in place for a reason, the buffers are there for a reason. And I know this will come across as, oh, we're just a bunch of old boring conservatives who don't want tattoo parlors. I would love to have a tattoo parlor in Yorkville. That's not the issue. I got no issue with tattoo parlors. I'd be happy to issue the license if it's appropriately placed within our ordinance and have a tattoo parlor in this town. Alderman Frieders knows that I don't have a tattoo, but I've been discussing with them actually getting one. So I have no issue with tattoo parlors. But it's the same thing with the build program. I don't like to change the rules we have in place to protect the residents that we currently have to dangle the carrot for new business, for new residents, for new builders, it's nice and fun to have new shiny things, but you gotta take care of the people who are already here. So for the same reason I'm voting no, I would vote no to the ordinance to remove the buffer, and I would vote yes to the ordinance to keep the buffer, depending which ordinance you guys will put up.
The motion has been to keep the buffer.
To keep the buffer, so therefore I would be voting aye. Thank you.
Larry?
I think the key here, if you look closely at the state law, it prohibits any minor, anybody under 18 from getting a tattoo. It also prohibits anybody under 18 from going into a tattoo parlor without a parent or a guardian. So it's written in a way to keep minors out of these types of establishments. And to me, the buffer works because why would you want to put this type of an establishment in a neighborhood area where are you going to have kids? So I support keeping the buffer. I think it works. I think it's there for a purpose.
Thanks. One of the things that this kind of brought up, on Saturday we had a goal-setting meeting for the entire city council. And one of the things that was thrown up there as a goal for the year was to kind of take a full look at our city code and realize what's antiquated, what actually doesn't actually need to be there anymore. What can we change to kind of bring our city code up to where we currently are? And a lot of the comments that I was getting from friends and neighbors was, why don't you just make the change, just change the rule? And yes, I would love to have a tattoo parlor in town, but the idea is we have all of these rules related to our, we call the city code. You have all these rules. We don't have the time or the staff to look at all of them and change all of them. So if we go piecemeal, one by one over the next 5, 6 years on a schedule, that makes sense. But if we willy-nilly pick things out as they come up and change them in favor of people who don't actually live in Yorkville, and if that change then negatively impacts the life of someone who does live in Yorkville, we're not aldermen of Yorkville, we're just trying to get more people in here and ignoring them once they're here. So this is the main reason why, like we had the build conversation this afternoon. I get it now. If you're gonna make a change, you kind of have to change a whole bunch of stuff. Like we talked about this parking restriction a couple months ago. And there's one type of little curve where if you have parking set up, there could be a blind spot. Well, if we change that one and we don't change the other 32 of them, we're doing a disservice because we're gonna have to administratively pay for the research, the traffic study, and all the other crap that comes along with it. And that, to me, seems irresponsible with your money. So if I'm gonna be spending your money, I'm not gonna be doing it kissing someone who isn't from the community, trying to get them to come in. But at the same time, not against business, sure as hell ain't against tattoos. I just think that we need to look at our antiquated city code on the whole, not just pick something up because it's a hot button topic right now. Had this been kind of brought to the information of the person applying for the license, I think it would have made a lot more sense to kind of go, okay, what can we do with it now? As opposed to investing all these money and then opening and then going, why'd you do this to me? And there's nothing happening to anyone. Just that you have a process set up to protect the people that already live there and already have businesses around it. To assume that there is any malicious intent or any intention to damage someone's, bankroll, is actually kind of offensive to me because I'm a small business owner and I got a crap load of tattoos, and I don't think that there's any indication from the timeline that we have that there was anything done maliciously. But I also think that this is a good eye-opener that we have to look at the city code because a lot of it doesn't need to be there the way it is. I was initially very in favor, get rid of it, why do we need a buffer? But we change rules and we amend things all the time, but you also make it a public notification, hey, we're gonna change this rule, do you have anything against that? Well, 80% of the time, nobody said anything because nobody cares. Well, now somebody cares. So you can't discredit one just because this guy spent $10,000 over at the tattoo shop. So it's, from my perspective, this is a big eye-opener. That antiquated city code needs to be bumped up higher on the priority list because this is gonna happen again and again and again. And it also further reminds me that if I'm gonna do anything with my wallet, I'm gonna hire a lawyer first. Probably not you.
Thanks.
But, no, Kathy, yes. This is one of those things where I can't get at a license requirement, understand everything right away. I gotta give it to someone to dumb it down for me. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm just saying, lawyer's gotta be the first guy you talk to because this could have been cleared up before you started construction. You know what I mean?
I was just gonna ask, if they had gone to the clerk and found out about this buffer, would that have been something that would have went through a public hearing? Or is that something that,
There's no requirement to amend, if you amend the code to do a public hearing.
oh, no, I know, but it could have gone, through the public hearing route to get a variance, right? Or no?
No, there aren't variances with regard to business licenses.
Okay, I was just
Right,
curious,
right.
because I thought the code wouldn't have been changed, it would have just been a variance, but I didn't know it. Okay, just curious.
Ken?
Having the buffer, I think, really works in this particular case because if you look at the Google map, you have 4 homes all surrounding that. It's right in the middle of all 4 of them. So, to me, it actually worked in this case.
Yes, sir.
I did some research about this, and I know there's comments that our surrounding municipalities don't have the buffers. There's only one local that does. But I was doing my research, when you get outside of our general area, start looking around in other states, the 700 feet is actually very minimal when you start looking at a lot of other municipalities around the country. One thing I found is, in terms of something like this being antiquated, the only time I see it becoming antiquated is in the instance of one municipality I found where they had 23 tattoo parlors. They had a 600-foot setback from a tattoo parlor or from residential. They came to the point where they could no longer allow for any other parlors to be in the municipality because they had met all those buffers. So that's the only time I could see it being antiquated. I don't have a problem with the setback. Question about the setback is we're restricting office and agricultural to be 700 feet away from those two. I understand the residential, but I don't quite understand the office and the agricultural. Agricultural is a vacant use, it's farming, it's not the business. I don't see why we would restrict that. An office is a use that I would not see as being a problematic area to have commercial of a tattoo parlor next to an office district. I would be comfortable eliminating those from the setbacks. I don't see that those are needed. And then 2 other things I saw in here, under 310.15, the age requirements, we have no one under the age of 21 may be tattooed. The minimum in the state is 18. what would be a rationale for making that 21?
It's always been 21. Our policy has always been 21. We are generally allowed as a municipality to go more restrictive than the state, rather than we're never allowed to go less restrictive. So that was the determination. There is a provision, however, in our ordinance that says if there's a conflict, the state county law will prevail. So that should there ever be prohibition, should there ever be any case law defining it, or, potential if we ever go through the entire code. But as it reads now, we have a conflict, so given that conflict, because the state can change it tomorrow too and up it to 21.
Since we're looking at possibly, or since we're looking at amending this, I would be more than comfortable striking that line and going to what the state requirement is. Instead of having potential conflict and having to deal with that, I would be comfortable making it in line with the state laws and have it at 18. The other item I had is 310.5, premise regulations D. It stipulates that you have to have the room would be completely separated from the waiting areas. It reads, "It shall be separated from waiting customers or observers by a solid wall or door, totally eliminating any view into the tattooing or body piercing room." This one seems a little antiquated to me. Again, in my research, finding a lot of these tattoo parlors are more in line with a nail salon or a barber shop, where they're open chairs, you actually have ability to view, watch the tattoo artists do their work, and have the customers and patrons enjoy what they're doing. I would be comfortable, again, having that one stricken. I do think that that is antiquated, and I don't necessarily see the benefit to that. I'd rather have it open versus behind a closed door.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, on that one, Chicago's code, if you look at a lot of their establishments are, you have your foyer area where you walk in. It's not necessarily, it's like a wall, but just all the tattooing is done outside of the area where people are coming and going. So it's not that you actually have to have a closed door, but you have to have a delineation between where you tattoo and where you talk about the tattoo that you're tattooing.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to strike the last part of section D of 310.5 to remove the solid wall for separation, as well as removing the no person under the age of 21 may be tattooed to default to the state requirement.
Can we vote on those separately?
Sure.
Okay.
So how about on the first motion to remove the wall, is it?
Yes, the solid barrier.
Do we have a second to remove the solid barrier? Motion fails due to a second. Now, do we have a second for a motion to change the age from 21 to 18?
Second.
The motion is second. Comments or questions on the motion?
So can I just ask for a clarifier?
Yes.
State, county, city?
It's city versus county or state. So if the county has a different restriction that's in conflict, or the state does, then one of those two would apply there.
But county and state are both 18.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one who believes at 18 you're an adult, and if you're old enough to serve your country, then you're old enough to get a tattoo, so I don't think 21 is reasonable, so I would support it.
So vote on the motion. Roll call on the motion, please.
This motion is to
Amend it.
Remove the first sentence of section 3-10-15, age requirements.
Yes.
Wackerzer,
Aye.
Wilczewski,
Aye.
Sealand. Cook,
Aye.
Pratt,
Aye.
Reuters,
Okay.
Rulis,
Aye.
Belisimo.
Aye.
Motion
Okay, we're back to the original amended motion. Anyone have anything further? Okay, roll call on the original motion as amended.
Teeling? Aye. Vogt?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Frieders?
Aye.
Torres?
Aye.
Colosimo?
Aye.
Funkadler?
Aye.
Wilczewski?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, all right, took care of Park Board, we have no Plan Commission, ZBA, City Council report, City Clerk's report, any community and liaison reports. Chris, I thought you were at the school board meeting, I heard you on the radio.
Heard all about it. Russell?
Any report other than they're voted to strike December 2nd?
They did publish their estimated tax levy. It's online. They have not, I believe the number was below 3% of an increase off the top of my head. They are using that. They actually published two documents, one which is the standard tax estimate, but then they also do a balloon in order to capture all funds in case the EAB number, or the estimates come back and are different. So it's an increase. We'll see a slight increase again next year on our tax bills from the district.
Okay, any other community or liaison reports? Staff reports?
Just one, Your Honor.
Yeah, just a reminder, next Saturday, November 21st and Sunday, November 22nd is the Yorkville Holiday Celebration Weekend. So starting at 11 a.m. from 3 p.m. at Circle Center School, there will be tons of Christmas-type activities as well as free visits with Santa. At 5:30 at Riverfront Park, we will have the first annual Yorkville Holiday Parade with the tree lighting ceremony and fireworks to follow right afterwards. And then on Sunday at the American Legion is the annual Chili Chase Run, which some of the proceeds are going to help out a child with a muscular dystrophy disease to help him get a wheelchair. So just wanted to give that out there and hope everyone can attend.
Okay, no other staff reports? Any additional business? No executive session this evening. Do we have any citizen comments? Any items that were not on the agenda?
We get a statement and start moving because
You can-
you said you guys should pass it over, you get a statement, or else got a statement.
Sure, this is the time, citizen comment is open. Just please state your name for the record and sign it, please.
I'm an honest citizen here, and I just want to bring it to you guys like this. You know, ladies, how we up and when you guys decorate your house, you got family coming
You have to
over.
state your name for the record.
Oh, for the record, my name is William Wild Yeoman. My birthday is 6/2/1979. You know, I just got to bring you this. Ladies, when you guys have family come in your house, and you guys got holidays coming up, everything's decorated the exact way you want it. You see smiles on people's faces when they come in. It brings you a good thing. Man, when you barbecue, you got all the guys over, you bring out a nice meal, it's perfect, exactly what you wanted. Bring a smile on your face, right? This man represents art. This is his art form. Why deny this man his piece of art 700s away? How is it detrimental to a school 200 feet? You can give him 200 feet. This man brings art and happiness to people's lives. I'm just asking you guys to take that into respect. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Do we have any other citizen comment? You can make a comment, sir?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, it is obviously addressing the buffer. My name is Matthew Faxon. I'm the owner of the shop in question. I've run through a lot of the paperwork that you guys actually hold, and there's a few questions that I've had. Regarding the apartment complexes that are across the street, I actually have signatures of pretty much the majority of everybody. I have the landlords in question, have their signatures. One of them even talked about coming to the meeting. But going through the permits and everything, well, not the permit in question, there's actually a part in here talking about indoor shooting galleries and gun ranges, that the minimum setback for indoor Indoor shooting gallery gun range facility shall be 50 feet from any property line that abuts a residentially zoned property. And also that multiple tenant buildings shall only be located in the end unit, pretty much stating that you can have a gun range within an apartment complex. Why can't you have a tattoo shop across the street? Is one of my main questions. That's in your paperwork right here that I was given.
Okay. Do you have any additional comments? This isn't a time for a question and answer. If you have comments, feel free to make comments, but isn't it time for a back and forth?
No, it's not about a back and forth. I mean, you guys allow a gun shop to be, or a shooting range to be within an apartment complex. But a tattoo shop cannot be across the street. Like you have 700 feet. But you can fire guns, but you guys are so concerned about children's safety. Where's the safety with a pistol? I mean, that's pretty much just my comment. I've never tried to bash the city in any newspaper article. I didn't try to make you guys out to be like anti-business, anti-anything. It's just, I mean, it was a minor oversight, well, apparently a major oversight, but I've been issued the zoning certificates, everything else, everything in line. I have my insurance paperwork is already set up, ready to go, as long as I was granted permission to operate. I mean, I've done everything. I understand the buffer existed, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It was an oversight by everybody, because obviously it got so far through to the fact that pretty much open for business, and it wasn't brought to my attention until after the incident with Mr. Newcomer, which sparked everything. And I am the sole owner. I've always been, he had no part in anything. He was gonna be an artist because he's great at what he does. But I'm sorry what happened. He got fired immediately. He will never be a part of the company. That's pretty much about it. I mean, I've pretty much done everything I can do. I've talked with everybody around, all the residents. I introduced myself the day I came in, and they were all fine with it. I spoke with everybody at zoning. They cleared it. They said it was cool. Obviously, I mean, actually, when you go to the city's webpage, it doesn't have tattoo shops listed anywhere on it. It has massage parlor, food vendors, everything else, alcohol, liquor license, everything else is there except for a massage or a tattoo parlor, which you can obviously see where the oversight came in. Nobody specifically did tell me. If they told me, that would have been the first thing that I looked up. I mean, it was an oversight. All I'm asking is to work. We'll go to an edge of town, but when you think about it, if you're concerned about gangs, anything else coming into the city, being around downtown, wouldn't you rather have it, instead of being an industrial park where things can go on, whatever, because you're pushing it off into the back. Wouldn't you rather keep it up front and be able to keep a grip on it? Keep it within plain view? Like, if that's what you're concerned about is trouble, people that cause problems, things of those sorts. I mean, you're kind of pushing it off into the back to where nobody can see anything, and kind of like it's a disgrace, which, I mean, I know it has a stigma from way back in the day, like bikers, gangs, stuff like that. It's not what it is these days. It truly is. I try to push everything to where I'm dealing with older professional people, middle age. You know what I mean? Like, it's a form of expression, a form of therapy, a form of art. However they want to express themselves, they're free to do it. But, I don't know. That's pretty much about it. I mean, that was the major concern after I started going through all the paperwork. After you guys shut me down, I understand everything, but again, like, you guys aren't so much concerned that gun ranges can exist within a multi-family residence, but I can't have a tattoo shop a certain amount of feet away. Like, it kind of negates itself. That's pretty much it. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Do we have any other citizen comment?
Yeah, I would just like to speak real fast. My name is Jeff Ogle, and, I'm not, I have no idea really what went on to lead to this point. But I do know that Yorkville is trying to revitalize the downtown and make it more beautiful, and I see the potential. Like you have the Naperville River Walk, and why not lure these young people to this area, and I understand that he would probably have to be held to the fire, and he would probably be heavily scrutinized, but give him an opportunity, work with him from this point forward. He's here, he's trying. Life is not easy to get where he is. He's a fighter, and I don't know why he got to this point, but he obviously did, and it's like it's his life's work. I'm his cousin. We're our moms, our sisters, and he is 2 months and a day older than me. And we came up with this idea together one day when we were 18, and I actually, I tattooed a couple of people, but I wasn't very good, and I quit, but he kept going, and he's still going, and he's my cousin, he's my brother, and that's why I'm here to you guys. Just please reconsider. Maybe there's some way you can work with him. Maybe there's something that can be done. And I would just, I personally see how beautiful this area could be. Isn't there that River Edge Park or something around here where they're whitewater rafting or something? You guys could really turn this place around if you just open things up a little bit. And maybe this shop isn't the answer, but if you guys are dangling carrots to get people here, residents here, maybe you guys can dangle a carrot right out on Main Street for them, I mean, that's just me, I personally believe that given the opportunity, he would be an asset to your community. And that's just me. I'm actually from Aurora. I don't live around here, but I frequent Silver Spring since I was 8 years old, and I just hope you guys would reconsider somehow, and with all due respect, thank you guys for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Ogle. Any other comments?
How you doing? I'm Zach Neal. I'm a longtime customer of Matt. I mean, he's been doing my artwork since I was 18. My mother's, my father's, both of my brothers, 2 of my uncles. It is, like the other man was saying, it is truly an art form. And just going through some of this stuff in here, I mean, it does really bother you. You could even go as far as having a sex shop across the street. I mean, we're talking about a building that's across the street from where he's at that is maybe a 5-unit duplex where 5 people rent. Then you got another duplex right next door where 2 people rent. They rent, they don't own. I understand that it might bother one person about the activity that's going on there. There's cars coming in and out. He's trying to run a business, I grew up out in Sandwich. Went to high school in Aurora. Moved to Yorkville recently, and I have people that, I got 60, 70 people that I've told that this guy's opened up a tattoo shop in Yorkville. There's no other tattoo shop around here whatsoever. It's bringing the revenue to the city here. And that's all he's trying to do is make a living. He's trying to help people out. I mean, you get people coming over from Sandwich, Earlville, Somonac, everywhere coming to Yorkville because the closest tattoo shop is Aurora, Batavia, you gotta go so far to get a tattoo. So, I mean, just looking through some of this stuff, like you were saying, you can have a gun shop. You guys are worried about kids. You can have a gun shop, shooting range, shoot bows and arrows. You can have a distillery over there. You can make beer. You could have a sex shop selling blow-up dolls and whatever they can sell. But I mean, if you guys were worried about the children, I mean, you consider those things in there too and take it out of here. So that's all I got to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Julie Schultz, and I'm 17 years old, a senior in high school, and we don't really know any of them,
But one thing that I've noticed is like I'm a cross-country runner, so like I go all over the town for my workouts, and I see a lot of like what Yorkville is. And there's not really many places you can go and have a business that are 700 feet from farm or houses. So like I feel like the buffer should be readdressed because like, if you think about how many neighborhoods are here and how close you actually are to houses everywhere, it's almost impossible to have a tattoo shop. Like you really think about what Yorkville is, it's farm and residence. Like you can't go many places that aren't already occupied with gas stations or stores that you can have a place to be. And that's why I think the buffer should be readdressed, because there's, like, if you want to have a tattoo business, it's almost impossible to do so. So, yeah. Wait.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Faxon. I didn't think I would speak. I'm his mother, but it's not about that. I'm not a tattoo person. I have none. That's not me, and he knows it. But what I've seen him doing, you know, he had a place in Aurora, but what he cared about is even then, he didn't let people drink on the property when he was doing it. You know, even now, he had it where we designed to close at 10 o'clock. It was regular hours. It's not, when I would have connotations like years ago, you'd think about, you know, people coming in the middle of the night and all drunk and whatever would happen. But watching different things evolve over time, you know, I watched the steps he was doing even in wanting to start a business here and how proud he was to be part of the community and wanting to live here. But he took all of his time and effort first in trying to get the business started and everything before he was able to focus on where he wanted to live here. He joined the Chamber of Commerce, and he had nothing else but to rave about, but talking about all the steps he did in the process. He investigated it, said it was zoned, that he could have a tattoo parlor here and everything else. And even when they had the opening and all the comments that the people from the Chamber of Commerce had at the ribbon cutting, it just really was heartwarming to hear the comments, and people have seen his work, seen the things that he's done. I'm on the flip side also, because I'm not about tattoos, but I've also seen over the years people do it. It's not just for, you know, yeah, thugs. But I mean, I have friends that have had breast cancer. I've had other people that have had other surgeries that they've had tattoos for those specific reasons after they've had mastectomies. I've known and seen where people are going in and they're getting tattoos in commemoration of some loved person that they had, that they've died. They've had Bible verses, they've had other things. It's not just tattoos as it used to be. It's changed. And I look at the work that he does. He cares about what he's doing with it. It's not just something sleazy and just to get by. And he tried to do everything right from the very beginning and not to slip it through. And, you know, even taking into account as far as the hours as a regular business establishment, he's been over talking to the other people that live around here and everything else. It wasn't that he didn't care about it. And again, and I know personally at the other place that he was at, there was no alcohol. He wouldn't let people be in there getting a tattoo and drinking or anything. And I just wanted to voice my opinion on that. It did surprise me, and it scares me, thinking about the guns, though, and other things that the other ordinances could have, that, you know, when we talk about families and kids and things like that, those are real concerns, too. But when he was reading through the zoning, it almost sounds like there's absolutely nowhere within Yorkville you could have a tattoo parlor. And it isn't something that he wants to be just sleazy and just people coming in the middle of the night or anything else. You know, even I was looking at the Bible verse, somebody just wrote last week that they wanted it done. It's very tasteful, it's very nice what people are doing and for different reasons. In the Mexican culture, it's very standard. A lot of times when their mothers died, they'll do a tattoo or commemorating their mother or different things like that. And like I said, my friend, when she had a mastectomy, those are things that affect them also, and that there's a time and a place for things for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faxon. Any other comments?
My name is Lori Paradise. My family moved here in, I can't remember if it was late of 1990 or early 1991. I was in middle school at that time, and when we first moved here, my parents were building a house in the White Oak subdivision, and that took a little bit of time to complete. So in the meantime, we stayed right in the downtown. I believe Ketley Builders was there at the time, I'm not sure, but it was right there, right where the bar and the restaurant is today. And I lived upstairs in one of those apartments for about, I think it was close to a year before the construction of our new house was completed. So I went to Circle Center, and I just wanted to say that this was a great place for me to grow up. It was a friendly community. Despite that, I've always felt that it was a safe neighborhood. I walked to school. Whether I went to the middle school or the high school, I still walked. And I always felt safe doing so. However, during my time living in the downtown as a child, I do remember there were still criminal activities that went on. And I don't think you can ever completely eradicate that sort of thing. So as a minor, I was probably 11 or 12. I did hear late at night, supposed to be in bed myself, but hearing clattering from the bar and the neighboring businesses downstairs. I did hear people having sex in the parking lot. One time at Circle Center Middle School by the dumpster, I was probably in 7th grade. I remember pointing out to one of my teachers that there was a syringe. Could have been carelessly disposed of by a diabetic. Could have been drug use. During high school, I noticed it was actually pretty well common knowledge that if someone was going to do a drug deal, they were going to do it in the McDonald's or the Burger King parking lot. That was way back when, a long time ago. The city seems to have grown a lot more. Come from the small town. I spent about 6 years out of state. During that time, I earned 2 different associate degrees. I've had 2 children, and I've found myself come back to this area because when my parents made that decision to build here, my family, I'm one of 8, we're all sort of centralized here. So Yorkville will always be my home. I did graduate from here. I guess my point is, though, one, I just want to say that crime is going to be anywhere. And in my experience, I only have 2 tattoos myself. Both of those I received up in Elgin, and I have no complaints about that. But the thing about I think if you talk to any respectable tattoo artist, they're going to discourage drug and alcohol use, simply for the fact that I also have a license in cosmetology, and people think, oh, that's just a certificate, or there's not that much that goes into it. Actually, there is a great deal that goes into it, and I think you're correct in comparing licensing for tattoos to massage parlors, skincare, that sort of thing, because there's a lot more. I mean, it's not just drawing and putting permanent art on someone. There's more. I haven't studied it myself, but I'm sure that they know stuff about the skin, the scientific knowledge behind that. And alcohol messes with your blood platelets. You're more likely to bleed out if you've been drinking. So I think just for those few reasons alone, any respectable tattoo artist would discourage that kind of activity. And I don't know about here, but in Elgin, I did see them turn away people specifically for that reason. Also, now having 2 degrees myself, and also a cosmetology degree, which I'm not currently using, I'm a new graduate, I'm also kind of looking for areas where I might want to start a new business as well. And I'm sure others are as well. When I did live out of state, the first thing I did, I don't know anything about laws. I was a single mom with 2 kids, putting myself through school. But I wanted to do home health because I got tired of the politics in working as a CNA inside the nursing homes. The first thing I did was went to the Chamber of Commerce. Usually you would think they would be knowledgeable on the issues, the procedures that you have to go through. If they don't know the answer, they can at least tell you who you would need to talk to. And I haven't followed the story closely enough. I'm not going to try to sit here today and play judge and jury and say who's right and who's wrong. But I do think that with the newspaper article and like you've mentioned, all the social activity that this has caused, I think it goes without saying that people are paying close attention. And as a former resident and still, you know, a nearby citizen, I do think that if you guys wanted to encourage new business to come to Yorkville, you should look at what the policy is for a new person coming in. Whether they live here or not, I think is irrelevant. There should still be a standard of what this person or any other person would need to go through. Maybe a clear set of guidelines or places where they could look. To me, it would not be obvious to go to the city council website and look for laws, or even to hire a lawyer. I don't feel like you should have to hire a lawyer. Like I say, I was able to go, now this is a different state, but I was able just to go to the City of Commerce, and they told me where I needed to go to register my tax numbers, what forms I needed to keep and pay attention to. And for my business purposes, it was small, and it was easy to manage, so it went very smoothly. And I would think that if you guys look closely at this, I'm pretty confident that you guys can come to some good conclusion and encourage business in the future. Because I do think I've seen it go from a small town, which was mostly small businesses when I first got here in 90 and 91, to it's more like a small city now than a small town. And the Riverwalk is beautiful. And I think places like this are a great addition to the community. Even though it's not so much small town anymore, people still love those small, unique places that you can't get anywhere else. So that's really all I have to say, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.
One day closer to retirement.